Hi guys, my name is Roger, and I'm building a mid-engine supercar in the basement of my home. Let's take a look at what I've been working on this week. Okay guys, well last week I asked for some suggestions on how to redo this centerpiece, or maybe possibly what went wrong with it. And I had a lot of people give me suggestions and replies to last week's video, and I appreciate all of those. And a few people had mentioned taking this bad part, and touch it up a little and make a new mold off of this part. But ultimately, I have decided that I'm going to remake this in two pieces after some careful thought. It looked like it would be an easy thing for me to do and probably my best route forward. So I have already remodeled the lower half of this, and I have that file ready to go. I haven't redone the top half yet because I found an issue with the top half that I want to change the shape of it. Let's see if I can get up here where you can see it. If you'll look, you can see the seat is hitting it. It's just a little bit wide, and the seat is not slid all the way back against this rear firewall. Now, I don't need the seat anywhere near touching this rear firewall to be able to fit in the car comfortably and drive it, but someone a lot taller than me may, and I want this seat to be able to go all the way back and touch this rear firewall without hitting this speaker pod or speaker area first. So I'll need to change the shape of this just a little. The front of it will need to be narrower, and the rear of it may be wider, which would give me a little more draft angle and help release the part out of the tool also. So I need to work on the top half of that, but really appreciate all of the feedback in last week's video, or from last week's video, and gave me some definite ideas to use, if not on this part, on other parts in the future. Now, in the meantime, I have finished up this mold, and you'll see that it is white. It is not the normal primer look that I have. And the reason for this is I had a suggestion from Jay Jarvie, and if you don't know who Jay is, he has a YouTube channel called Builder Creator, and if you're not following or watching his videos or subscribed to his channel, you need to be. He's a very smart individual. I always enjoy his videos, and I learn a lot from watching them. He can do just about anything, and the amazing thing about Jay, from my point of view, is I know how hard it is to keep one project moving along, trying to design the parts, make the parts, order everything you need, and keep it flowing smoothly. And Jay has two projects at one time that he is keeping moving forward consistently. One is a mid-engine supercar like I am building, and the other is an off-road ATV type vehicle. So how he manages to work on two projects at the same time and keep them moving forward is beyond me. But anyway, subscribe to Jay's channel and watch his videos. They are very impressive. But Jay's suggestion was to, since my parts stuck to the mold last week, just to add an extra layer of protection by painting the mold on top of the primer with some kind of a good quality, shiny, glossy enamel paint. And I wasn't able to go to a paint store and get any good quality spray paint, so this one I had to use some rattle cans or spray cans to paint with it. But I think I got a good enough quality paint and a thick enough coat on this to make the part release better, and I was happy with it. You can see some swirls on this one. I have already put the first coat of wax on this mold, and I'm going to get all 6 coats on here tonight. So tomorrow I will be ready to make this part. It's actually 2 parts. It's a left and a right mirrored on the same pattern. But this should be an easy part to make. The carbon fiber layup on the part is easy. I only need like 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches flange all the way around once it's trimmed. So there's nothing complicated about this mold or part. There is a little bit of shape and contour down here on this back, where this part that we CNC'd on the router to get this contour to match this other mold over here that failed. This part, these areas here on these angles, will insert into this area here and match this shape. So that's why it has a little bit different shape to it. But this mold should be ready tomorrow, and hopefully we will make this part, or these 2 parts, successfully, and then we can start fitting them and trimming them, inserting them in the car for the center console. But I just wanted to show you this little update, and I'll let you know how the parts go tomorrow when we come back. I know it's noisy out here with the vacuum pump running, but I wanted to give you a little update, so I'll try to talk as loud as I can. I don't normally have a very loud voice, but we'll see how it turns out. This is the part. It has been infusing for about 18 or 19 minutes. You can see that it is more than halfway finished, probably 60 or so percent finished. If it infuses 50% in 15 minutes, that doesn't mean it'll take 30 minutes to do a full infusion. It gets slower as it goes. The resin starts gelling up just a little, and I guess the vacuum pressure is pulling more volume in the part, so it slows down also. But it is moving faster than I expected. It's looking good. So I'm just watching this, letting it feel, and hopefully it'll feel consistently and have a good part when this is finished. But I'll check back with you when this part is fully infused and once it's baked or dried in the oven completely. So that will actually be late tonight or tomorrow, but we'll come back and see what the part looks like when it's finished. Well, the part is off of the mold, and the first thing you're going to notice is that the paint stuck to the part again. Actually worse than the last part. It was stuck all the way around the entire top surface. The paint removed, stuck to the part. You can see that it pulled the paint off down to the primer, at least, maybe even part of the primer with it. And I have a theory as to why this is happening, but we'll come back to that in just a second. You can see this area here where I took a razor blade and scraped the paint off down to the carbon fiber, and then I'm using this little aluminum brush here to get down in the weave of the fabric, and it's cleaning up pretty good. I can still see some very minor traces of the paint down in the groove of the fabric, but I believe I'll be able to get the rest of that off. Some of it's completely gone. So that is a lot of work. It's going to take me several hours to clean this part up, but I think it would be better to clean this up than to try to fix this mold and make another part. But before we start cleaning this part up, I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half down the middle and then cut it to shape that I want it to fit inside the car. That'll remove probably 10 or 15% of the center of this mold. That'll just be some area that'll be thrown away I won't have to clean. But anyway, back to my theory as to why this is happening. The parts were coming off of the mold very easy up until the last two parts I've made. So I started thinking, was there anything that I have done different in my process? And I did come up with something. The thermostat controlling my oven quit working, and I replaced it with a different method of reading temperature and cutting the heat off in the oven. And I did that right before these last two molds went in the oven. So my theory is that my oven is getting hotter than I think it is. And it is getting hot enough to either break down the wax that I'm putting on the mold or break down the primer and paint that I put on the mold both of these times, and allowing the epoxy to blend with either, well, obviously blend with the primer or paint, whichever one was on the mold. It was different for both cases. Now this mold I did do a little differently. I did not use gel coat on this one. Someone had told me that it might be easier not to use gel coat since I was going to be clear coating anyway, so I wanted to try that process because the gel coating takes time and it smells bad and it's just an extra expense if we're going to cover it up with a clear coat anyway. The last two molds, one was made with clear coat and one was made without, but both stuck. Now this one obviously stuck much worse than this one. This one, last week's or last time video, was stuck pretty badly, but not as bad as this one. But I'm just curious if my problem is I'm overheating my oven the last two parts I've tried to make, and it has caused the paint and primer to break down and get soft enough that the epoxy is just bonding with it. I'm just not quite sure, but that is the only thing I could come up with. I'm going to ask around to some people that are familiar with doing carbon fiber and fiberglass layups and see what they think, if that's a possibility. But anyway, I'm going to get busy cutting this piece into 2 parts and trimming it to fit in the car. And then once that's done, I'll know exactly what I need to clean up, how much of the material here I have left I'm going to have to clean, and how many hours it's going to take. So let me get busy doing that. Well, this is what we've accomplished this week. You can see I have both sides of the console made, trimmed to shape, and installed in the car. I'm happy with the fit. Everything's aligning and looking good. We have the bin part of the console here sitting roughly where it's going to go. These sides aren't pulled up snug, and this isn't level, but you get the idea of where it's going to go and what it's going to look like. This will be up about this high on top of the aluminum insert that's going in here. I've started modeling this, and I will show you this next week to give you an idea of what it's looking like. I'm not happy with the shape yet, so I don't want to show it just yet. And I need to make the top piece that'll cover the entire top of this. It has 2 steps in it. It goes under this bin, so the bin will bolt down to it, jogs down, it goes under the aluminum piece, and jogs back up, and is flush with the top of this all the way to the firewall to seal that off and make it tight. Before I make the mold for that, I have a printout here with the dimensions of this part, and I need to measure across here in 2 or 3 places and verify the size is correct before I make that mold. You'll also notice I have cleaned the paint off of this one side here. It took me about 3 hours, and it is only about 98-99% of the way there. There's still a couple of areas or spots that I need to clean a little better, but it is looking really nice. And as nice as it is looking so far, I'm sure I can finish it and get it to 100% to where we'll be able to use these parts. Haven't started cleaning the paint off of the other side yet, but I will do that when the top cover or the center of the console is in the mold baking for 6 hours. That'll give me plenty of time to remove this paint. And the paint, or the carbon fiber part sticking to the mold and pulling paint off, I think I've solved that problem. I spoke to a couple of people that have had this issue, and they agreed with me that my oven was getting too hot and the wax is breaking down and the paint is softening, and both of those are allowing the resin and the paint to adhere to each other, so it's sticking to the mold for that reason. I have bought some components. I'm going to rewire my oven and put it back like I had it originally, so the thermostat is a little more accurate and I can control the temperature better. I'm positive my oven was getting about 10 or 15 degrees hotter than I was wanting it to, and that's what caused the breakdown of the wax and the paint and everything to stick together. So hopefully the next part I make, this top cover for the center console, we will prove out that the oven is back to normal like it should be, and we won't have any more sticking parts. That would be nice. But I guess that's going to be about it for this week's video. We've accomplished a little bit this week, and hopefully we'll make another part and attach it next week and get more done on this center console. I'd like to get this wrapped up so we can get back to making the piece, or the 2 pieces that's going to finish up this console back here between the seats where the subwoofer goes, and then that entire console on the back firewall all the way down the center of the car will be completely finished, except for that aluminum insert, which once it's finished modeled, I'm going to start looking for ways to fabricate it, and it'll either be 3D printed in metal or 3D printed in some type of plastic and have a vacuum metallized or a metal coating on the outside of it. There's a couple of avenues I'm going to look at prices and see exactly what I'm going to do. But anyway, this week's been kind of fun, and I'll see you guys again in 2 weeks.